The tech ecosystem, India, in my opinion, is the second strongest in terms of potential outside of the US.
Welcome to the Think India series of audio and video podcasts by Brand Capital International. This is the place where you're going to see top insiders, entrepreneurs, and innovators who are going to come and share with us their secrets on how to build a company ground up and take it global, all coming from the hub of innovation, the Silicon Valley.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Think India series with Brand Capital International. My name is Piyush Puri and today I have with me Kenrick Nguyen, who's the co-founder and CEO of Republic. Welcome to the episode.
Piyush, thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Absolutely, it's a privilege to have you here with us. We understand that Republic is an investment platform that allows people to invest as little as $10. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself first and tell us how that all kind of weaved into the story of Republic and how Republic was formed?
My family immigrated to the Bay Area, the US, from Vietnam. And just because you're right in the ecosystem, it doesn't mean that you get to participate. And so when the law changed, that allows for anyone of any income or net worth around the world to invest in private companies, it just seems like that's the sensible thing to do.
Right.
That if private companies is going to build the next, economy, the future, then there's no reason why people of any background cannot invest what they can afford in viable ideas that may one day generate, wealth and a return for them as well.
In democratizing investment, SEC in 2016 enacted the Title III of the Jobs Act. If you can talk a little bit more about what exactly happened and why it was so instrumental in the creation of Republic, because I understand only then was it possible for Republic to be formed.
And I may have to go back almost a century back to the Great Depression in the US. And the Great Depression was caused by a lot of, scams and fraud in the early phase of US corporate America.
Right.
And so in their infinite wisdom, Congress decided that, hey, you got to be wealthy to invest privately. Now, all of that probably made a little bit of sense back in the 30s and the 40s. But if you look at how Americans, just Americans alone, spend about $100 billion in the casinos in Vegas and spend another $80 billion in lottery tickets, most of which are by people who are not wealthy. If that's the case, but you lock out these
Right.
people from credible investment opportunity when companies take longer and longer and longer to go public.
Right.
So there was a lot of lobbying effort back in 2012, 2013 by AngelList and others, and we got Congress under President Obama to change the rule that, hey, any company, even a restaurant, can raise from everyday people, but they have to be vetted and go through a platform like Republic.
Right.
And we take that responsibility as an intermediary, a gatekeeper.
Right. Conventional wisdom suggests that there's a reason why, regulatory bodies like SEC often limit people in where and how they can invest, because the fact that people are not always in the best state to make a good financial decision when they're faced with questions like startups and questions that they don't generally understand. So what did Republic do as an intermediary to make it easier for people to understand that it's okay, you can make investments in startups as little as $10 and you won't lose your money?
From the SEC, from the government perspective, they set out this framework that, hey, there's an intermediary, the gatekeeper that is Republic,
Right.
that we have to be responsible for doing certain things. So it imposes the obligation on us.
Right.
So that out of, for example, 10,000 companies that applied,
Right.
we've launched less than 200. Company may fail or succeed, but bad intention, that has been truly absent from the world of crowdfunding.
So you mentioned that out of 10,000 companies, only 200 companies were able to sail through the due diligence process. So can you talk a little bit more about how the unit economics work for Republic and what's the business model behind Republic?
We always kid that our acceptance rate is lower than Harvard admissions, but we came from the venture ecosystem. We apply both a manual process as well as data-driven. And on our side, we don't charge investors anything. But if a company successfully raised on Republic, then they pay a cash commission to Republic as well as a interest in the company. so
Right.
that we too are an investor in the same bucket, in the same boat as the other investors.
So some skin in the
And
game.
Exactly, and that we can be with them for the entire journey. When there's a decision to be made, investors can look to Republic on how to make those decisions.
I understand that the way Republic's structured right now, there are similarities between Republic and AngelList. In fact, as it states on your website, Republic comes from the same family as AngelList and Product Hunt. So can you talk a little bit more about how's that a family and what are the relationship with Republic?
So the key distinction about Republic and Angel is that Republic deals with the crowd. Today we have investors from over 100 countries investing as little as $10, $20. The minimum check on AngelList is $1,000, and the average check is much, much higher. I really think that even for companies like Airbnb, they still should engage the crowd, the people who host
Right.
homes on their platform, and give them an opportunity to get skin in the game. Republic is a solution for that, and not the other platform.
You mentioned that there are investors from over 100 countries investing on the Republic platform. How is it that you address the regulatory frameworks of 99 other countries, and hasn't that been a very difficult task to figure, given that it is very different from how it works in the US?
Even when we enter a new country, for example, India, if we were to set up Republic India and enable Indian residents to invest in Indian companies,
Right.
we absolutely would need to have true regulatory licensings and permission and on-the-ground partners to do it. But if Indian residents passively come to the Republic website and make an investment, then Republic arguably is not under the jurisdiction of the relevant government authorities, because we essentially are not making an effort to target people in that country. It's just that they reach out, no different than they would to fly to the US and buy a product
Right.
and then fly back.
Right.
So in the new era of the digital age, a lot of the framework around jurisdictions is a gray zone, and the dust is still settling.
In the meantime, we can make use of this ambiguity and
Exactly.
and hope things
Yep.
work well. What's the kind of interest that you've seen from India?
I think the tech ecosystem, India, in my opinion, is probably the second strongest in terms of like potential outside of the US. I think that there are more activities in India. There across the board, from hiring, recruiting, fundraising, viable companies than anywhere else in the world. Eventually, we hope that this can happen in 2020. That crowdfunding, crowd investing will be possible in India.
What would you say about the US competition right now? Are there many players in the space?
As much traction as we have had today, we have about short of 500,000 users. It's still like barely scratching the surface. If you walk out on the street today and ask a random person, 99.99% do not know that they don't have to be a millionaire
Right.
to invest privately and as little as $10. So the name of the game is still very much exposure and adoption.
Right.
So we're like probably not as concerned about competitors, because
Right.
anyone out there talking about it is good for the industry overall.
Right, absolutely. So basically, there is a market to be created first before you can start worrying about who's going to take that market.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Right. I know that you've also recently ventured into the space of a note reward token platform. So can you just talk a little bit about some of the newer initiatives that Republic has come up with?
People ask us if we're pivoting, if we're expanding, and my view is this: blockchain is a technology, a blockchain project is just another company. So we treat it very much the same way.
Right.
Except that blockchain technology is so instrumental to fintech and venture. It enables you to fractionalize things into small pieces and enable automation so that it can be so cheaply done. So these technology are so important to investing.
Right.
So we're incorporating them into different aspects of what we do.
So basically, it's not really a pivot of the business model. It's just something of an enabling technology that's helping you do what you've been doing more efficiently.
Absolutely.
Going back to India and talking a little bit more about the traction that Republic's had from India, I understand you've already spoken about the traction you've had from a customer or an investor standpoint, but how about startups? Can anybody from India list themselves on the Republic platform today, or will they have to change their incorporation?
The rules in the US right now is that in order to raise on Republic or a similar platform in the US, the entity raising money has to be a US entity, but it can be a subsidiary of a non-US entity.
And in this process, the investor would own equity in the subsidiary?
Correct. But that's why even at that point, legal structuring
Right.
is still so important, and it's different in every case.
Right.
And that's a big differentiator for the Republic team.
So basically, a number of different structures entirely dependent upon what is the geography permits.
Exactly. So
Right.
you can imagine that with any new case, any new country, that our team spends an inordinate amount of time to work with founders and figuring things out. In the process, we're also productizing things for our own platform.
One last question for you, Ken. What's next for Republic? Where do you see it going in the next 3 years?
Wow, it's hard to look that far in advance, but our vision, our goal is to be Amazon for private investing, where anyone around the world can invest small amount as quickly and as easily as buying a product on Amazon. And I think that's the only way that for people to have a voice in what kind of companies will be building our future world. 75% of Fortune 500 companies in 10 years have yet to exist. I think we all should have a say rather than let the big banks alone
Right.
dictate that, the next Facebook or the next Uber. And so we hope that the message with the support of media partners, and that's why I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation. But I'm quite confident and hopeful that we'll get there in a couple of years.
Absolutely, Ken. Onwards and upwards. Thank you so much for spending time with us today at Think India with Brand Capital International. If you happen to consider India and look to expand into India, we'd love to talk to you and work with you.
There's no question about it. I hope that by 2021 there will be a robust Republic India operation with your help and partnership.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thanks.